Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tricked Before. This time, past prologue on It's All Been Tricked Before. Don't be past prologue. Get up with us. Patreon.com/IBD. That's not only will you have access to everything, you can go back. You can go back into the past. The past is now prologue. And then you can get it on the epilogue, which is coming soon. But right now, the epilogue, that's later. Right now, this is past prologue on It's All Been Tricked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tricked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. And we are here to talk the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode, Past Prologue. First impressions.
Yeah, I don't know if I loved it, but there was a lot going on, and we're still getting to know these guys. It's episode 2. So, yeah, it didn't blow my mind, but I'm enjoying. I did enjoy seeing the Duras sisters, and we had, I think we've talked before on our journey here. We're going to see more aliens and stuff, and it'll be more integral on DS9. More Bajoran. I almost said Bajoran. I'll say that more later. Bajoran. So
pejorative.
Yeah, the pejorative. I'll be saying that a lot too. It's not really exposition-y, but I'm still getting to know the characters, obviously. So yeah, I enjoyed it from that standpoint.
I'm starting to remember what I was thinking before now. I mean, I thought something similar about both of these episodes that we've watched. I mean, thinking ahead to the thing we watch next week somehow. Just I have a prediction. I like them both in the same way, or I will say that there's the thing that I'm thinking is positive, and it's a good setup for the potential of the show. I think, and in this particular case, it's the idea we're actually getting to see it as a space station, like a waypoint for people to be passing through and doing all kinds of different things, and especially the potential of the Duras sisters showing up. Oh, we can get cameos now. This is great. We're establishing that right now. We're going to get to. We're going to connect with the outer
right in episode 2.
So
yeah, I am with Keith that I think these two are going to be held very similarly. Not that I've seen the 3rd episode yet, but just remembering all those years ago. No, I think my expectations were so low because how long have I drilled into you guys? Deep Space Nine season 1's terrible. It sucks. Be patient. And obviously I exempted the pilot, and I thought the pilot was pretty good, other than the Prophet stuff did get a little bit. But these 2 episodes I thought were good. Not great, but not terrible. We picked a specific alien character and got into their backstory in each one of them, one of the main crew. And this episode started with the introduction of Garak. So that got me so excited because Garak is definitely in my top 3 favorite characters on DS9. It's hard to pick just one. He's definitely in the running to be my favorite character on DS9. Hugely up there. Maybe you didn't quite see it from this appearance, but there's so much depth to Garak and complexity, and I cannot wait to explore it.
No,
I'm already enjoying him.
Yeah.
I'm already enjoying him. I recognize him from memes, but I was already enjoying him. I like his makeup. And then I discovered the actor that plays him,
Andrew Robinson.
I didn't recognize him under the makeup, and is also 20 years later, but he was in the first Dirty Harry movie. He's essentially the bad guy in that movie. Yeah. The killer, the psycho. So good actor.
Also best known for, besides this role and Dirty Harry, for Hellraiser, Child's Play 3. He recently, I see in 2020, it says Alone Together, a DS9 companion, and it's 4 episodes he played Elam Garak. I need to see this. I did not know this existed, but it's Dr. Julian Bashir goes to visit his old friend Elam Garak, and it looks like Kira and Quark and Jake are all in it, and these are all the original actors. I don't know who wrote it or who made it, but it's filmed during the pandemic on Zoom, and now I gotta see these 4 episodes. That's going to be on my list this week.
And he did all kinds of guest spots on TV in the 70s and 80s too.
Yeah, and once he completed, and maybe he wrote, I don't know if he wrote this web series or not, I'll have to check it out, but he wrote a novel starring Garak when DS9 came to an end called A Stitch in Time, about what Garak was doing immediately after the run of the series, and it was part of DS9's post-series story. Garak's such a rich character, which we'll get into, but he is a writer, and he has a strong sense of ownership over the character. He did not write the miniseries. Strong sense of ownership over the character that I love, and I think really shines through in the way he plays the role.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, the opening, I wrote down who's zooming who, because I didn't know who was messing with who at first.
So that opening scene of Garak and Bashir, this is something that has long been up the fan theory that a lot of fans think there was a romance between them.
Right.
It's never explicit on screen, but you can certainly see that there could have been a romance between them. I like that theory.
Yeah. I like that they're hanging out in I'm going to call it the space food court.
Yes.
It looks like a food court.
When you can't go to the Quarks, when that's too busy for you, you can go to the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just tell Garak's toying with Bashir through this whole scene, and he will continue to toy with Bashir for the next 7 years. What the obvious open secret, and I feel like they basically confirmed in this episode it's true, is that Garak is a spy. He's definitely a spy, but what his connections are and how deep that spyness goes and what his purpose on DS9 is has always been a lot more murky than that.
So he's Taylor.
He's a plain, simple Taylor, just plain, simple Garak, right?
Plain and simple. Yep.
But he's the only Cardassian left on the station, which left living on the station, they make mention of. And that is fascinating to me because he obviously, Odo and Kira and Quark are okay with him there. Whether they are for him there or not, it's unclear. But like, if he was one of the Cardassians that was actively like torturing Bajorans, he would not be allowed to stay on the station. But he also was definitely involved in their government, at least in their spy agency. So it's that murky thing. But yeah, just getting that first conversation between Bashir and Garak, I feel like tells you everything you need to know about their relationship for the next 7 years. And I'm here for it. So when this is over, and this is showing you just how green an Officer Bashir is, because remember, he just graduated, first assignment, can't wait for Frontier Adventure, and he runs up to Ops, the Operations Center, and has to tell O'Brien, tells the whole senior staff, Garak's a spy. Oh my goodness. And everybody else is so like, yeah, okay. We don't care. And then Bashir assuring Sisko, like, Starfleet secrets are safe with me. The whole thing cracked me up. He's such a naive, ridiculous character at the beginning. Bashir is.
Yeah.
So then there's the mission or whatever where there's a shuttle that's being attacked and O'Brien has to operate the transporter, back to his old roots while he's on Ops.
Yeah.
Up in Ops. And who beams over but Tana, played by the great Jeffrey Nordling. I'm sure you'll recognize him, best known for Big Little Lies 24, Flight 93. So many credits. Man in the High Castle, Nashville, some of the more recent ones.
I knew him from Big Little Lies. I saw that. I'm like, oh yeah.
Desperate Housewives, Dirt. Yeah, I love Jeffrey Nordling. Immediately recognizable here. And this is his only Star Trek appearance, surprisingly. Just this episode. And
no Seinfeld. I thought he might have been a Seinfeld guy, but he was a Sex and the City guy. He did do Sex and the City.
Honestly, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but I'm a Jeffrey Nordling fan. I really like him usually. Completely underwhelmed by this role for him.
I thought maybe Tana Los would be more roguish, which to us seems more fun. I thought he'd be more outrageous, like the outrageous Elkanah, but no, he's just a jerk. So
your mistake was that you didn't. You should have noted that he wasn't because they didn't say that he was. There weren't any characters that called him roguish. That's.
They said he was a terrorist.
Yep, there you go, right there. That's.
The word terrorist gets thrown out a lot in this episode. The Klingons are terrorists. The Tana Los is a terrorist. They don't say the Cardassians are terrorists, but they do talk about how much terror they instill. So, roundabout way, they're terrorists too.
So, besides Tana being lame, I thought the writing on this episode was a bit lame. So I think I enjoyed this episode for the acting. I think a lot of the main characters and Andrew Robinson really got to show their chops, but the guest star and the story itself were a bit lame. And so I looked up the writer of this episode, Catherine Powers. She wrote exactly one other episode of Star Trek. She's best known as a writer for Stargate SG-1, The Quest, Next Gen, DS9, which is funny because she only wrote one episode of Next Gen, and you'll never guess which one it was. Think about, we're starting a new Star Trek series. We need a writer that only wrote one episode of Next Gen, but it has to be so good to bring them in and help us establish these characters. What episode do you go back and look for, do you think is an inspiration?
The Naked Now, of course.
No. But you're in the right era of the show. Okay. Oh, it was a season 1 episode.
Code of Honor?
Yeah.
You are right. It was Code of Honor.
I couldn't remember the name of it, but I think that's what we were going for.
Well,
I mean, such a terrible episode. Why they ever gave her a second chance, I don't know. Although this is way better than Code of Honor.
Yes.
I agree.
Kira basically excuses Tana because she's got history with him. And that kind of ticks off Cisco. This is the beginning of the exploration of Kira's time as a terrorist and her caught between what she was and what she is. She obviously wasn't such a vicious terrorist that they wouldn't allow her in the government and in the official military. But she did some shady things as a freedom fighter. I mean, like we said, this was supposed to be Ro. So imagine Ro's backstory, and Kira's backstory is very similar there.
Someone refers to her as that Bajoran woman, which I immediately was like, it really sounds pejorative. I mean, this is years before I did not have sex with that woman, but that also went through my head. But just real quick, you were talking about the acting in this episode. This would be my Colleen moment of the episode. So Colleen was doing a puzzle while I was watching it and wasn't actually watching it. She was just listening, and she was just like, he sounds like Keith. So that was Colleen's interpretation of Cisco. So good job, Keith.
Cisco?
Yeah.
I would consider that a very big compliment.
Me too. Yeah. She was watching it. Like I said, it was a radio show. So she was like, yeah. So you were Cisco for that hour, Keith.
I mean, Cisco is my favorite captain, also in contention for my favorite character of the series.
There you go.
On the subject of season 1 being bad and so forth, they're still warming up the acting chops, I think, in certain places. I remember it stood out to me during the disagreement with Kira and Cisco near the beginning when he's like, I'm going to pivot you around over here in the hallway. Yeah. We're going to have this out real quick. And something just is like line. I'm reading lines. And then, okay, we've got this out. We're going in. Yeah. And there's something. Yeah.
And then later in the episode, there's a weird thing where he's on a step. He's like, it's like he's 7.5 feet tall and she's 4 feet tall or whatever. Which was interesting.
Yes.
But
they're going over my head a bit.
Yes. Yeah. And I was like, wow. I will say this. I do like all the different levels of the space station.
The operations center?
Yeah, there's very little like big open areas. It's a lot of just really tight. And I kind of like the nooks and crannies idea of it. I think that's really cool and different, and gets into that kind of like the seedy but different and stuff.
Well, it's not Starfleet built, which is really cool that we're set on the alien space station.
Yeah. So I really like that. And I might have said this first episode, but there are moments I'm like, oh, I'm watching a Sci-Fi Channel show, and there are moments I'm like, oh, this is really good. To Keith's point, where it's like, yeah, you can tell they're kind of fine. And this is around the time for me that I was watching a lot more Sci-Fi Channel, so that's probably why I make that connection. Even though, effects wise and that kind of stuff, and that's not necessarily an insult either. It's not Sharknado, so. Yeah.
Something I liked about this is I didn't feel like we were forced to pick a side between Kira and Cisco in their fight. I felt like I could see both sides the whole time.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of sympathy for what Kira was going through, even if some of her decisions may not have been the best in terms of Cisco's viewpoint. I never felt like I was siding with one over the other.
They're good people on both sides.
That's
I know.
Yeah, I thought Cisco was very even-handed. Was like, yeah, this makes sense. I'm going to go with this, and and then, I thought that was a good duality to set up, and their arcs with it, and they didn't lose their. He was more mad about it going over his head than the rest of it.
Speaking of going over her head, Admiral Rollman was played by Susan Bay Nimoy, Leonard Nimoy's widow. Played the Admiral in this and one other episode of Deep Space Nine. For some reason, her only Star Trek appearances were on Deep Space Nine.
She was also married to John Schuck, who played a Klingon, I think, on Undiscovered Country. He was Klingon ambassador. Oh, and he was in Voyage Home.
And he was in Voyage Home too, yeah.
Klingon ambassador. Yeah.
He will be in an episode DS9 as well coming up.
Oh, cool. Cisco. He says to the Cardassian, he's like, "Don't threaten my station and don't, fire on a Bajoran ship." And the Cardassian's like, "Well, I haven't threatened you." And he says, "I stand corrected." And the way he said it, speaking of good acting, the way he delivered it was like, "I stand corrected." And he's essentially saying, "No, I'm right. Bye."
I love it.
But he said, he said one thing, but he certainly sent a different message. And I really love that.
So that Cardassian was Gold Danar, played by Vaughn Armstrong, best known for the Philadelphia Experiment, The Net, Clear and Present Danger, and in an episode of Quantum Leap, he played Fred Trump. I assume that's the Donald's father, because that was his name.
Yeah, it was. Yep. Or
he also will do. He also will do 18 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise as a Commodore who was eventually promoted to Admiral.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
He'll do
Admiral
5 episodes of Voyager. He'll do 3 episodes of DS9 as different characters. So he'll have lots of Star Trek credits for him. But I liked him. He was overacting a little bit, but I liked him.
Yeah.
Well, back to the subject of Cisco for a moment. That delivery. It reminded me of something that Jimmy was saying early on about this series and Cisco's character, the departure from Picard, the difference. And I wasn't sure at first. I mean, it's as far as following procedure and not being as rigid about certain things. You got him. I kind of got that feel here in this episode, where not necessarily playing fast and loose, but I got the feeling that Picard would have done some of the same things, but with a little bit more hemming and hawing than he did. So, for example, the thing with the doctor here, showing up and confirming, hey, I had this weird conversation, and Cisco finally listening and going, oh, right away, I get it. Here's what's happening, and so in the same sort of subtle sense, saying, yeah, go ahead and keep the appointment.
You could use a new suit.
Yes,
yeah.
that
the spy games.
Yeah.
Cisco and Garak, I feel like, are 2 men that can understand each other pretty well.
Right.
To your point about Picard, I mean, we never saw Picard in the situation Cisco's in, at least not for more than an episode, where he's put in a place that a lot of people don't want the Federation. Kira does not want the Federation. Tana doesn't want the Federation. Kira's seeing them as a necessary evil because of the wormhole, and she sees how that will help her people, and they need Starfleet to defend it while her people are rebuilding. So she's already starting to come around in that regard, but this is a whole Bajoran plot that's going to be explored a lot over the next few seasons. Of a lot of Bajorans don't want Starfleet and are worried they're going to be yet another oppressor because they don't have the personal experience to tell the difference. And it's that fear of other, fear of outsider. I mean, we certainly see that in today's world. Yeah.
But I just thought about the other part of that distinction. As far as I understand it, Picard's just been, a company man for a long, uninterrupted stretch. And although Cisco isn't openly rebellious, he's a serious guy and he takes what's going on seriously. You still get the feeling of him being much more used to being flexible or doing things outside of that because of him just recently being brought back in and having mixed feelings about the Federation anyway. And so just...
You may notice that the Kira and Tana say Bajor for Bajorans. No mention of Bajora. So gone is the Roma Gypsy parallels. They are now fully on board with Bajoran and Bajor. Bajor is the planet. We're done. We've got rid of
Bajora. What was Bajora before? Was that the planet name?
That's what. I think that's what Picard referred to their people as, the Bajora. That was something on Next Gen that did not carry into DS9.
Well, he was pronouncing it with French. The N was silent. He was like Jimmy-Jerome. Yeah, Jimmy-Jerome.
I'm assuming that somebody made the wise observation that this could be construed as a little racist. Maybe we should go in a different direction.
Yeah, it goes against our code of honor. We need to. Yes.
Oh God.
Thank you.
At this point, Lurs and Bietor show up. This really was not an episode for them. They basically did a cameo. And I thought they were completely wasted.
I don't know. I like the idea of they were. I mean, you may be right that they didn't need characters that big, but at the same time, they came with the backstory that you would sort of understand what their relationship with the Klingon Empire at the moment, and the significance of at least seeding the storyline with it for later.
I don't disagree with that, but when you bring in Lurs and Bietor, you got to let them chew the scenery, and they did not let them chew scenery.
Yeah.
I feel the same. Yeah, Jamie, I felt the same way. Like I was excited when I saw them, and then it was like, just give me a little more. Give me just a little bit more, because I mean, I guess it's like if you just had generic alien bad guy, then it's like, who cares? But when you bring them in, it's like, oh, this is awesome, and then
it could have been any Klingons, and the story would not have changed.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's disappointing. The first scene we get of them is them not wanting to surrender their weapons and finally giving in to Odo. That was fine. It was that was the best they were in the whole episode, which is so disappointing. Also, though, does anybody believe they really only are carrying one weapon apiece? That is very uncling. Like, they should have either pulled out a whole bunch of weapons, which would have been a much funnier scene, or just something there. It felt fake and false. And if Odo knows them well enough and commands the respect to get them to hand over the weapons, Odo would know that they have more than one weapon. I'm just saying.
That would have been very funny. They just keep pulling.
I don't think he'd encountered them before.
Not them personally, but he knew of them and their reputation, and he was able to, he had knowledge. He did his job as a security chief. Odo waxes nostalgic for simple Cardassian rule, and it makes Odo a strange character where he's not for the Cardassians. They were too brutal for him, but there's parts of that aspect, and I think that's part of him just like not liking change. And he's got this domain, and he doesn't want anybody else coming in and telling him how to run his domain, which you get also at the same time by couching it in that. Yeah, the Cardassian occupation wasn't all bad. You're like, whoa, dude, whoa. Well, no, it's the equivalent of saying something racist to your friends.
It's order that he's referring to.
Yeah. I know, but
I just wanted to move on to the point, though, that's how I think a lot of when you say like middle America and the average American for a lot of things that go wrong, how you can sell totalitarianism to them is that this looks like peace, at least. This is something this is a black and white thing.
Yeah, we had that in the Four Lights episode.
No, I think it's the equivalent of somebody like hanging out in Germany in the 1950s and saying, the Nazis were bad, but they really made things operate efficiently.
The trains ran on time. Right. That was Mussolini.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of him saying that around a bunch of Bajorans, right?
Yeah, all right. Yeah. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
It was just really out of touch. Did you notice as they panned through Quark's bar, there were two people fist wrestling, is what I'm going to call it, where they had their fists and they were doing trying to get dominance? I appreciate it was a new twist on arm wrestling.
Huh.
Have you ever seen a reference to it by name of some sort? I mean, I wonder if I can find it. I never noticed it before. Never heard anybody mention it anywhere. But as they're panning through, I'm like, what a nice detail to add into the background. I enjoyed Odo watching the Klingons watching Tana, like the whole this. And I knew instantly, I don't think it was from memory. I think it was just knowing the series. I knew instantly that rat that the camera focused on for half a second was Odo.
I stupidly wrote a note like there are rats on DS9, which I thought would be cool. And
I think there are actually, but
then I was like, oh yeah, he's a shapeshifter. Shapeshifter.
I mean, he couldn't have gotten away with going into a rat if there weren't rats on DS9. And that's a good point. Station for what it is. Yeah,
that's a good point. When they're doing the suit talk, he says, "Come here at 20:55 exactly." So I got to ask. Is that on DS9 standard time?
Well, you may have noticed, or was this the next episode where they mentioned the 26-hour day?
Yeah,
that's the next episode. That's the next episode. So yes, it is It is station time, 20:55. But on the station, they go all the way to 2600, not 2400.
Okay, all right.
Because Bajor has 26-hour days, and the station observes the Bajoran, and the station absorbs Bajoran time.
Oh man!
But which part of the planet? I assume the capital city. I don't know because
Oh, right.
That's I don't want to. I'm tempted to think about that too much more than I should. Just going to start to bake for compatibility with other systems. How do they account for all the other days and years and when their star dates? I don't know. There's a translation process or formula.
That's a good question. I guess when you're traveling faster than the speed of light, do those things have more meaning or less meaning?
Well, the closer you get to the speed of light, the slower time goes, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's why they do star dates. I mean, not that they ever had a system that any of us could recognize, but I think that's why they do the star date is because it would get very confusing. You have to have some universal time to go by.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you spend a year on Bajor, I don't remember if they ever mentioned how many days it takes for Bajor to go around the sun, but let's assume it's 365, even though it probably isn't.
Right.
Every year you spend on Bajor, you're actually like more time passes on Earth than a year. Like you get off on the calendar.
Like an extra month.
So Yeah. Or they're like, Jake, you're only 18. He's like, no, if you count Earth time, I'm 20. Well, no, but you're only 18. Sorry.
There's a Pirates of Penzance song in there somewhere.
Love the Pirates of Penzance. The Klingon sisters try to sell Tana to Garak, which is when we're like, is Garak a spy? I guess he is, but does he have connections? Could he actually sell people? The fact that Garak is smart enough, though, to be like, you know what? This is shady. This could blow my whole cover. This certainly isn't worth having my being kicked off the station or getting in trouble for. So I'm just going to tell Starfleet what's going on and do it in a way that's like, I'll just let the doctor know he needs to come get a suit.
Yeah, I like not knowing exactly what he's up to. Even, I mean, not only
you never will.
Yeah, and I actually like that. While we're on the Duras sisters, that's most of that's all my fashion notes. Fashion, of course, the return of cleavage. I'm always excited about. Spelled with a K. The underboob. Don't take the fashion notes from me. Take them from Garak, and I think it was Garak had said both these things. Klingons have an odd sense of style, he said. And then he follows that up with, and I could not agree more, those two outfits are worth studying closely.
Oh God!
So many meanings to that.
Yep.
I didn't even thought about it that way, but I was focused on the other meaning, which I loved. Whether intentional or not, they did a very good job of showing that progression of the relationship between the Doctor and Garak to get the introduction out of the way. That first encounter just felt so palpably awkward to me. Mm-hmm. I guess I kind of felt like I was in the Doctor's position, and this is a Cardassian on this station. It's gonna be a loaded kind of thing. I would feel, should I feel embarrassed that I'm talking to this person and in public with these people? They're going to associate us in this negative way. Should I feel like he's evil? You can tell he's like a little bit scared of him too, because this is like, what is he going to do? But at the same time, he's so overly friendly and kind of almost aggressively, saying we're friends now. It's like, okay, but then just each successive encounter got just like a little bit more comfortable, just slightly. And then that part where he actually said, I love that line, no time for levity right now. I'm gonna have to be straight with you right now. Here's what's going on. Mm-hmm. So even then it was couched in just enough, euphemism. So yeah.
Yeah, my other fashion notes besides the Klingons were I liked Garak's ensemble. I thought he was dressed decently fashionably, I'm assuming.
He's a tailor, he knows clothes.
Also, he is coded gay a bit, right? Like he's flamboyant in a way that they're wanting you to think a certain way.
Ask my background picture. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that's accurate. I wonder if there's a guy who he goes back and looks at old TV shows and how they stuck that kind of stuff in. And I watched a whole thing on Frasier, how Frasier worked in that kind of stuff, openly and not openly, and some other shows, Friends. How initially Chandler was supposed to be gay, and then they were like, "No, we can't do that." So,
that Monica thing would have been awkward.
Yeah. So I feel like he's probably got something on this. So I'll try and look into that.
No, I mean, I think that was intentional. And
yeah.
I don't know if he's gay. I don't know if he's bisexual. I don't really care either way. Like, it's just interesting how they tried to handle that thing in the 90s before they felt like they could go ahead. Like Discovery today, obviously. If this was Discovery, Bashir and Garak would have had a relationship here. I appreciate that Star Trek has evolved in that way. Also, did you like Bashir's suit coat? It looked pretty standard and run-of-the-mill to me, but I guess, Garak really didn't need to spend any effort on it because it was all just a hoax anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
And since you brought that up, I could see Bashir also being coded gay to an extent, except that he's
coded bi. He's definitely coded bi.
Vociferously going after Dax from minute one, essentially.
Yeah.
But
poor Dax.
Yeah. Somebody says, welcome to DS9. I don't know if that happened in the pilot. I didn't realize within the show they also call it DS9.
Yeah. It's just easier.
Yeah. Look at that rat. Well, welcome to DS9.
Perfect.
So Tana goes to Kira and tells her basically what's what. Like, we're not, he doesn't give her the whole story, obviously, because he's like, we're not going to be violent. We're just going to do this thing. But he takes a big chance trusting her, although I guess at this point he'd have to take a chance. Like, he doesn't have any choice but to take a chance, right?
I think he might have even put forth his reasoning to her in the sense that this is either way, it'll serve the purpose of figuring out whether or not he can trust her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he also questions her loyalty, which is a great way to manipulate her into helping him.
Indeed. As I think I said right in the beginning, good introductory transitionary episode to the potential of things. And it feels like something I was probably referring to during the pilot. Kira's character. This is like the next stage of that. We need to get past that initial kind of, I'm just bristling, that kind of, I am putting on this strong front to everybody about Starfleet. I hate them. I don't want them here, but we have to, and that kind of thing. And she was forced to examine that more fully, and even start to defend that position to the point where she's like, "Wait a minute, you're being too hard on them. Wait a minute, I'm being too hard on them. This is what they really like. This is what I want, And she could actually see them as part of the future of the planet. So,
and I thought Tanalo's, he was essentially, when he was saying question her loyalty, was and this is the canceled portion of the podcast. It's like the Michael Jackson "The Bad" video. You ain't bad. You ain't bad. No. She got soft, and then later he proves it by punching her in the face. But she proves she isn't soft because she just gets right back up. It's like, okay, is that all you got? And then she ends up getting her revenge or overpowering him by.
So even after Kira realizes what Tana's up to, she's still vouching for the other terrorists, which that's her most sus thing in that episode to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
But then she immediately goes and talks to Odo and talking about making a fool of herself. And they talk about, be true to yourself, not who you used to be. And I kind of appreciated, it shows the depth that they actually have a relationship. At the end, Odo just calls Cisco without asking Kira. And he's like, hey, you need to, Kira wants to talk to you, which could be fine. Or it could be like, dude, I had not made that decision. Let me make my own decisions here.
Yeah.
I felt like it was acted well enough where I felt like she had made the decision on her face.
Yeah.
And it kind of, it was just, you could tell that she was sort of frozen there with like, I need to do this. I've decided I'm going to do it, but how do I make that first move to do it? And
I really like that scene between the two, those Odo and Kira.
Rene Auberjonois is an amazing actor, always has been. I don't think I fully appreciated Nana Visitor on my first viewing of this. Like, I never disliked Kira, but I'm blown away by her so far of just what she's doing with that character. I really dig it. I think this is a cast without a weak point in the leads. I mean, arguably maybe Jake, but he's a kid. The rest of them, I feel like they have a very strong cast here. Kira has to go and risk herself on that mission, but Cisco lets her, like, he trusts her. And I think that's a good step forward for them because they don't know each other that well. And Kira's actions in this episode don't give Cisco a lot of reason to trust her, but he still takes that chance.
Yeah.
I think he's a wise man and a good judge of character, but I also feel like that is a risky move as a leader. If it had gone wrong, if Kira had sided with Tana in the end, Cisco would be answering to an admiral, a very upset admiral.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it shows his faith in her. He's got a good feeling about her.
Yeah.
Just for the benefit of the audio audience, I had been nodding all the way through what Jimmy was saying before. So I think that doesn't really.
I do think it's super odd that when Cisco goes on the runabout to follow them, he takes O'Brien instead of Odo and a security team. I mean, don't you think that's wrong? It's like Cole Meany hasn't had screen time, so we're going to send him instead of the appropriate officers.
Maybe as a hold down the station or something,
Maybe we talked about this last week, but do they just call them runabouts because they just didn't want to call them shuttles? I mean, they don't look just like the shuttles we're used to, obviously. Oh, I guess they're a space station, so they wouldn't have shuttles.
They're like a fancier, bigger shuttle with a warp drive sled over top. They have more powerful engines. Yeah. They're designed to go longer distances than the shuttles.
I think I'll recognize that when I see the next episode.
Now,
if you notice, the two runabouts look slightly different. There were different designs for each of them. Yeah. Which I appreciated. So I like the runabout design overall. I dig it a lot, honestly.
Sorry, Keith. I didn't notice if they had names on them like I do with the shuttles. I didn't look. So.
Yeah, they're named after rivers. They mention the name several times.
Oh, okay.
The Rio and the Ganges and the I don't remember what the other one is. Yeah.
Not the Mississippi.
So I mean, that just sort of for me begged the question of where they were acquired and by whom and how. Are they proprietary to the Cardassians in some way?
They're Starfleet.
Okay.
Yeah, they're noticeably visually Starfleet vessels. I really enjoyed the scene where the Cardassian goal. It's only taken me 3 episodes. I'm back to saying Cardassian correctly and not stumbling over Kardashian.
Very good.
But the Cardassian goal, Danar tries to talk to Cisco and tell him he's trying to say "I told you so," and Cisco just hangs up on him.
I love it.
Cisco has real big D energy, like through the whole series. I love it so much.
Speaking of which, I love it when he tells our boy Tana Los, "Well, you can surrender to me, or see what happens with the Cardassians."
That was great.
Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, you want to play this game? Let's play."
So his plan is to blow up the wormhole, which is so short-sighted because, as Kira says, the planet needs that for their economy to rebuild. And he's just decided that it's better to cut off the economy and let the people starve and suffer to keep everybody else away.
And he says he's going to set it off and kill a bunch of Bajorans. She's like, does that really make sense? Yeah.
Well, he's not going to kill Bajorans. If he'd set off on the station, he'd kill Bajorans, but he was going to set off in the wormhole. So yeah. That they theorized he might be trying to kill people, but he's not. That's why he could justifiably claim it was non-violent, I guess, as he was only trying to close the wormhole, not hurt anybody.
So I want to go back to that thing with the Cisco giving him a choice. I think that was another good illustration of a couple of things there. The reputation that they have built up for the audience's sake about the Cardassians and their practices, the lights and so on. We get to see them do some stuff like that. And even in the exposition earlier in the episode, they dropped something about, I think it was O'Brien mentioned, you don't want to turn any man over to the Cardassian care, their tender care. Yeah. Cisco in that situation, conveying that again with very simple euphemistic terms, them or me, and also again demonstrating I don't see Picard doing something quite like that. I think he would still maintain, we're still going to take you into custody ourselves and do this process, and this is the proper way to do it. But Cisco, right, like an actual human being would, probably in many situations like that. I've already given you all these chances. You took advantage of what we were offering you, and so I don't, either take it or not. I don't care anymore. We're gonna wash our hands of it like we should have in the beginning, or could have done in the beginning.
Jimmy, maybe you mentioned this when we saw the episode where Picard's tortured essentially by the Cardassians, but was the idea that would kind of roll into Deep Space Nine, that we learn a little more about the Cardassians, how terrible they are, so that
would be my assumption. I don't have any evidence to back that up.
Yeah. Speaking of which, at this time, this will be several months since, but R.I.P. David Warner just passed away. So.
Yes.
Yeah, the guy who played.
As we're recording this, it was like a day or two ago. Yeah.
So,
I will mention real quick that Larsen Bietor still have another episode of Next Gen and a film to come back. So we have not seen the last of them, and there will be plenty of juicy. They're in the first Next Gen film, like in a big way, not as a cameo. So
I'm excited.
Yeah. They're not done yet. Thank goodness that this wasn't their departure from Star Trek.
I don't know if we should let the audio audience know this for free, but I did use air quotes when you were saying juicy. So.
That's funny because Betor wears sweatpants that say juicy on the butt in the film. No. The end of this was relatively powerful, I thought, to me, where they landed, where Kira tells Tana, the old ways don't work anymore, and he just calls her a traitor.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think that leaves you... I mean, Kira definitely has some self-doubt in this episode, but that leaves you knowing that she's going to continue to have that self-doubt. That she made a decision, but she's going to regret it. And some of her people do see her as a traitor, not just Tana. And we'll explore that. And the great part about DS9 staying in one place, unlike the Enterprise that moves every week, is we will get to see over time Kira's relation to her people and the people that think of her that way and how their opinions impact her life and all of that. So
yeah, I like them walking out.
That's one of the great things about staying on a space station in one spot. Yeah. As the explosion happened behind them. No, I'm kidding. Right. And then they freeze framed and started playing an 80s tune. And
I kept waiting for them to talk, and I liked it better that they just walked off in silence. I really like that. So.
DS9 lets the silence happen.
Yeah.
So I do have 2 alternate episodes. I mean, one, the obvious one, is really lean into making this a spy thriller with Bashir and Garak.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one is, and I think DS9 might have done this in a later season, but they hadn't found their identity so solidly yet. I think it would have been interesting if Kira made a different decision. Like, oh, you're just going to close the wormhole? Okay, I get that. I'm siding with you. And then through no action on her own, they stop Tana. And then what does she do after that? Not saying that she'd be locked up or anything, but living in that gray area and that murkiness and the people don't agree and you do things that are against regulation. I feel like DS9 lets characters do that later, but not this soon.
My alternate episode, this will not be surprising, is the Duras sisters. And it's from their perspective, and they're the protagonists of the whole story. And they're the good guy, the good girl, the good women.
I foreshadow that something you said about that, or some aspect of your comment, is related to my feelings about the next episode.
Who is your shady character this episode?
I just went with the easy one, Tana Lopes.
Yeah, it's got to be Tana. I mean, as much as I like how shady Garak can be, and I would think it should always be Garak, Tana's the character that's shady here.
But yeah, there's really not much else you can choose there.
I mean, you could always choose Kira for being shady with Cisco and going over his head.
Sure.
It's good.
You could always come up with some things to but I think Tana's the right one on this regard. Who was your annoyance in past Prologue?
That was probably also Tana. I was very lazy with that.
I mean, 2 in a row, I got to go Bashir. Just that whole, oh my God, guys, he's a spy. Oh, he wants me to buy a suit. I don't understand. I do find it a little bit charmingly annoying, I will admit, but it's annoying.
Yeah.
You sold me on it. It was a little bit too much for.
We all chose Bashir for episode 1, so now Keith and I are repeating him.
Yeah, I might have gotten Kira actually because of but I mean, it was understandable, her conflict with things, but just the way she was going about it.
With?
Again, I'm going Chalk, the Duras sisters. What are you in town for?
I mean, I'm going to 2 in a row Kira on this one. She had the story, and I want to know more about her at this point. I want to sit down and find out her backstory, why she thinks what she thinks, get into what makes her tick, and how she's feeling about everything. I think she needs a friend.
I mean, at this point, I'm going to go with like end of the episode Garak. Intro Garak was a little bit much for me, but it seems like I would say the same table with him and the Doctor at that point. So
it's hard for me not to choose Garak for Drink and Shady every time he appears, but I'm going to try my best not to. And this, as much as I love how fully formed Garak came out of the gate, there are episodes where there's more to him and better, so I'll wait on that regard. Ranking, I know we don't have a lot to rank, but better or worse than Emissary?
Worse. I'll say.
I guess, yeah.
I think so too. I don't think it was a lot worse.
No.
And to me, was Tana and the mistreatment of the Duras sisters more lame than all the wormhole alien extended scenes, and I land on a little bit.
Yeah.
You sold me again.
So next week we're staying with DS9. We are, if you're not paying attention or wondering what our method is, we're doing it on release date order. So very soon we're going to be jumping back and forth between Next Gen and DS9, but DS9 got to air its first 3 episodes before Next Gen came back from its winter break. So next week, DS9, A Man Alone, Ibudan, a criminal Odo has dealt with before. I probably said it wrong. Ibudan? I don't know.
I think you're closer the first time.
A criminal Odo has dealt with before with some name, returns to DS9 only to be murdered shortly after, leaving Odo to be the prime suspect. Also, they include the B-plot in this synopsis. Jake and Nog's troublemaking prompt Keiko to do something helpful for the station's children. That's a debatable statement, but until then, live long.
And keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
And Garak closer than that.
And buy yourself a prosperous suit.
At 2055, exactly.
2055, yeah.
Exactly 2055.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?